Oh, buddy, Andy here again. I know this is going to look a bit strange, but I wanted to do a very quick video actually. I've just been listening to Danny Baker on Radio London, BBC, or whatever it is, I can't remember, 94.9. And it was the reason I listened to it, because I don't listen to much radio. The reason for that will come apparent in a minute, I suppose. But I'd heard that his show on there had been cancelled, and it's pretty much it's a London radio station, so it's more or less a community station run by the BBC. So therefore, it's not the sort of thing that I would listen to, although I certainly respect and admire him as a broadcaster generally. But I heard that it's going to be his last ever show. I don't think it was supposed to be, but I think he basically said, right, if you don't want me anymore, that's it, I'm going. And and it was great to listen to, because it was right on the edge. He certainly didn't hold back about his feelings about what was happening, and not just for him as well, but also for all the people, either the listeners of the show that he produced every day, or the other contributors to the show that were in the studio with him and helped him out over time. But what he was saying, and it's very, very true actually, what's happened to him is very much like what's happened to so many other people, and it just shows you what this sort of whole generic nature of media is today in the UK, and quite possibly across the world as well. And ironically, I was having a conversation on Twitter at the same time with somebody that I know about the state of radio, partly because of the Danny Baker sort of thing. And one of the quotes that Danny Baker made right at the very end of his last show was about how everything now is run by the backroom staff, the managers, the hordes and hordes of managers that he'd never met, because he wasn't told by the management that his show was being cancelled. Effectively, he was being sacked. He found out by other means, and then obviously went to the managers who then confirmed it, but they never actually told him face to face. That's another way that these things tend to happen. You find out on social networks or something, you think, hang on a minute. But he said something about, because everything's run by money, and that's half the problem. And the quote he said was, I hope they all choke on their abacuses, which I thought was great. But he's been treated pretty much the same way as lots of other people have been in the past, especially with the radio. You think of people like John Peel, and you think of Andy Kershaw, all three of them sort of fairly individual broadcasters in their own way, and mavericks maybe, but people who did things differently, especially with John Peel and Andy Kershaw. You think of the music that they introduced, and I know Danny Baker introduced new bands as well, referred to that today in his programme. But all three of them have been shunted around, especially, as I said, I know that Andy Kershaw and John Peel better than the Danny Baker situation, I must admit, but they were both moved around from pillar to post within the BBC, changed on stations and put on different times of the day and night. In some ways, because no one knew what to do with them, because they were mavericks, they were doing something different. They were too scared to actually get rid of them, because they knew what the backlash would be. But they moved them around, possibly in the hope that eventually they just get sick and tired of all this and leave. Ultimately, you could argue that what happened killed John Peel because of the heart problems. I remember if you read Andy Kershaw's book, he actually refers to that, oh, they're killing me, Andy, type of thing. But that aside, you think about what it's like in the world now. If you've got a long enough memory, what radio used to be like, and the different people that used to have on. You could have individual people. Even if you look at Chris Moores, I'm not a fan of Chris Moores, but I know a lot of people liked him. He left, possibly, I don't know whether there were reasons for that as well, outside of his own personal reasons. But everything now is generic. Everything is so boring. I think of my local radio station, which is actually based in a different county, can you believe? But they are part of a larger corporation which broadcasts exactly the same programme over all the different stations that they produce, and they just put in little local idents. There might be little bits during the drive time or the breakfast show which separate them for the specific areas that they're supposed to be in, but they're just a conglomeration of about 5 or 6 different stations, and they're not the only ones. They're just doing what everybody else does. Other companies come in and buy them up. You see TV stations, everything is generic. That's why everything is so bland nowadays. That's why, talking to this other person on Twitter, I get frustrated by this. Yes, I'm involved in a bit of radio, but the only radio that I'm involved with are stations that are a little bit different. One of the things that I like and so proud about with something like Hastings Rock is that there are no stations like that. You listen to the radio, apart from maybe a community type station or something that's run by individuals, shall we say. It isn't run by a multimedia corporation or conglomerate with loads and loads of money and and plans and lots of figures and tick sheets and all that sort of stuff. and reams of managers in offices. As Danny Baker said, he said they've got more offices, meeting rooms for the managers than they have actually radio studios. And that's the way so many places have gone, and I could name other industries that are very, very similar as well. There's more management than there are, there's more cowboys than there are Indians or whatever it is, so that's why I'm involved with something like Hastings Rock. It's a bit different. It plays what it wants to do. It appeals to an audience. The audiences are there for these type of things, whether it be the Danny Bakers, the John Peels, the Andy Kershaws, all of those people, and people in the past who were forced out. I remember, never a fan of his particularly, but Dave Lee Travis forced out of Radio 1 all those years ago and did the same thing, did this little spiel about how he didn't agree with the way that things were going. Some things, yes, things have to change. I totally understand that, but why move someone like Danny Baker away from somewhere where he's very, very popular, doing a great job? There aren't really any reasons. It's because, the tick sheets and they do all these surveys of people, what people want. Do people get what they ultimately do particularly want? I don't think they do. I think they're given what their people think that they want them to have, and that's why everything's so boring. And with the X Factor things and the TV and the Strictly Come Dancing, we've got all once something comes along which is maybe a little bit unique, a little bit different, everybody else jumps on the bandwagon. And you get hundreds and hundreds of different shows or bands or whatever it might be. They're all exactly the same as what's gone before, and it's never as good as the original that started it. So there you go, a little bit of a rant, but I just wanted to do that very, very quickly after listening to that show. Very, very entertaining. I'm sure it would be on the iPlayer or something like that. You can listen again just for some little rants that he put in there. As I said, he didn't hold back. But there again, why should he? He feels the same way that I'm sure loads and loads of other people do. That unfortunately, what we're given nowadays is just boring stuff. And if you do listen or you do watch, it's because there is no alternative. I love radio, love doing radio and presenting radio and being involved in radio, but I hardly ever listen to it. I'm certainly not music-based radio because there's nothing that I want to listen to. Even used to listen to Planet Rock quite a lot, but that's changed for a number of reasons. I know partly financial, but that's another reason that the whole system, certainly in this country, is set up against the low-key, the community type of thing. I know people who try to put a community radio station together and they can't because the financing just isn't there. Everything is stacked against them. It's all done in favour of the big corporations, the big conglomerates with all their money and all their backing of multimedia, companies or across the world sort of companies, multinational, that's the word I'm looking for. And whereas the little people have got no chance at all, and that is only going to get worse and worse, I'm afraid, especially when you see what's happened today. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Thanks for your time. I'll speak to you again soon. Goodbye.